having a family culture where everyone's in the kitchen when it's dinner time and the phones are down and the music is on and we're cooking, and then someone's going to set the table and we're going to sit down at a kitchen table or a dining room table with no devices, gives us an opportunity to fuel not only our children's tummies, but also their sense of identity and belonging, right. Creating family rituals. That creates a sense of self.
So you guys, today I have a very special guest, and we're going to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart and so many of our community members' hearts, and that's parenting. Kiva Schuler is the founder and CEO of the Jai Institute. Did I say that right, Kiva?
You did.
Okay, good. It is the Institute for Parenting, and she's also the author of a groundbreaking book, The Peaceful Parenting Revolution, Changing the World by Changing How We Parent. I think this is really important, guys, especially when it comes to how we parent around health and healthy habits and taking care of ourselves. So thank you so much for being here, Kiva. I'm really excited to dive into this subject.
Thank you for having me, Haylie.
So let me ask you first, tell me a little bit about what the Jai Institute is.
We are a parent coach training organization, and I would say the world's leading parent coach training organization. We support passionate parents, pediatricians, therapists, educators to really learn a parent-centric approach to supporting parents to become actual adults. And, I say that with a little tongue-in-cheek, but the reality is that children will best meet the goals and aspirations and worldview and values, decision-making that we want them to have if we embody that ourselves. And so our core belief is that changing behavior starts with adults versus the way that it was really looked at in the past, which is kids needed to change their behavior so that our life was easier and better and we could feel more proud and all of that.
Well, I think it's so cool that you're doing this because my kids are a little bit older and they're 22 and 20, almost 26 now. Right. And I will tell you, one, I believe parenting is not for the faint of heart, or at least if you want to be try to be a good parent. But when I was parenting, there really was not a lot of support for parents. And it was lucky I had a great mom. And so there was some modeling that could happen for me, but I didn't have a dad that was around until I was much older. And so, it was hard. It was difficult. And so I was online, looking at a lot of the things that you do. And I really loved that. And I think it mirrors a lot of what I always say is we're not meant to do this alone. And parenting, again, can feel really lonely and really judgy. I mean, I used to, before I had kids, I'd see kids with snotty nose and I'd be like, oh, someone needs to clean up that child. And then, I had the kids that I had. And
then you have them and you're like, oh
my God. Yeah. It was like, there's mud in every orifice. Let's go, guys. Totally different experience. So the biggest thing that I love is that you're supporting the parent, right? And so give me some ideas about, for parents. I want to jump into how a parent can keep a kid on a healthy routine. That's where I want to go. It's how do we support the kid? But first I want to take a step back and go, how do we support mom and dad or auntie or grandpa or whoever is doing the parenting? How do we support that person to feel healthy and whole? Give me a couple steps that you think pencils and crayons are where we can support that person.
It's important to acknowledge that when you are tasked with, being responsible for a whole human being's growth from infancy, in and beyond or to and beyond adulthood, that is a leadership role, right? To do parenting well means you are accepting responsibility in ways big and small for this person's health, well-being, sense of self, confidence. It's a big responsibility. And one of the ways that I look at the world is that if I am a leader, the way that I take care of myself is essential, right? I think of myself as an Olympic athlete. Am I an Olympic athlete? But
I like that.
Big company to run. I am a single mom of 2 children. And so part of it, again, is accepting that kind of mature, wise responsibility that how I fuel myself, how I sleep, how I get my needs met has a direct link to my ability to meet this child's needs in the most successful way possible, right? Like when we don't parent well, often it's because we're exhausted, we're overwhelmed, we haven't given ourselves good food, and then we beat ourselves up relentlessly for, losing our mind or, taking the toy away. Whereas if we prepared to meet, that huge amount of energy that it takes every day first, then we're going to have more more fuel in our battery to be able to navigate. I mean, you said it yourself, like parenting is hard, and let's stop pretending that it's not. Of course it is.
I think also by you using the term coaching an athlete, right? Like I've never had an athlete and I've never had a parent that's hired coaches on the side. Like when my son played baseball or my daughter was writing, like we had coaches, right? And a lot of parents had coaches on the side that helped them to develop or excel in the right way. But I loved when you talk about parents having coaches, because I think oftentimes when parents need help or ask for help, there's like, maybe I'm projecting, but there's like a little bit of guilt that I just organically or innately can't pull all of this off.
I think it's shifting. I founded Jai in 2011. And there was still very much a cultural belief that, if I admit that I need help in my parenting, I'm somehow admitting that I'm not a good person. Right. The idea that parenting should come naturally, that I should know how to, raise a child. Well, that's kind of crazy. None of it, we didn't know how to drive a car before we went to driver's ed. And what people are really recognizing now, I think one of the positives of social media and these conversations being more in the open is for most of us, what comes naturally is directly linked to the way that we were parented. Now, that doesn't mean if, we got the belt as a child, we're going to use the belt, but it might mean that we're hyper overly, like too much parenting, right? Hyper vigilant was the word that I was looking for. And so part of our work is to help a parent pause, take stock. What matters? What are the values? What are your goals? What are aspects of yourself that are perhaps unintentionally causing harm to your children? Do you stonewall? Do you yell? Are you, is your love conditional based on their achievements, right? All these things that really do cause relational harm between parent and child. We can learn our way out of them, but that's going to take a coach. We can't see our blind spots without somebody holding up a mirror.
Right. That's true. That's valid. Yeah. I love that. And so in our community, we have a lot of people at different phases of parenting, right? We have, it's really cute because we have a large community, but little do they know I'm in there all the time. We have someone that was just going to start the cleanse with us and she just found out she's pregnant. We have grandparents that are raising their kids or that spend a lot of times with their kids. We have aunties and uncles and a lot of foster parents in our community too. And I think some of what, one of the things that we try to encourage in our community is that their lifestyle is something that they can share with their children too. So in the diet space, right? A lot of times things that people do is we would never do it to a kid, right? Like fasting, like this crazy fasting thing. Could you imagine if we sent our kindergartner off to school with no food, a little bit of coffee, no food, until 2:00, nothing, right? The body if that child is developing and all those neurotransmitters. Yeah, we do that to mom or dad or auntie or, and I'm just like, you guys first stop trying to perform under conditions of torture, right? Starvation was never meant to be this is crazy, archaeological, I'm going to call it bull, what, that people are attesting. So we try to nourish and nourish. And what I love about your community is you're infusing the parent. You're not saying, look, this is what you're doing wrong. You're saying, look, it's acknowledging it. It's awesome that you want to do this task well. And let's give you the tools and the skill
Yeah.
set for that. Yeah. So give me, like, again, our community loves, 1 or 3 bullets. Like, what can I do today? We have like this, I'm a proactive practitioner, right?
Yep.
We have a proactive community. So what is the best way for parents to keep their kids on a healthy routine when it
Yeah.
comes to a busy lifestyle? Give me some things we can start tomorrow.
Well, I mean, I think, it really is about what's happening in the home the majority of the time. The food that we have available in this house is healthy food, and it's always been that way. Um, so that's number one, right? Are we practicing what we preach? Are we walking our talk? Children are so smart.
Right.
And they will be the first to notice where we are not in integrity with what we are asking them to do or how we are asking them to behave when we ourselves aren't, right? They're kind of like, hey, wait a second here. This isn't fair. And, over time, that can really cause quite a rift because our kids won't trust us. So number one is, if you aspire for your children to eat healthy food, have healthy food in the house and model that kind of those kinds of eating habits.
Hi, it's Haylie, your host. I know firsthand what it feels like to find real impactful solutions to your struggles. And I know what it feels like to lose hope. We are being bombarded by toxins every single day. As a matter of fact, the world's largest single environmental health risk is air pollution. One thing that is becoming crystal clear is that environmental toxic burdens in our bodies must be addressed. Let me help you tackle toxic burden. Go to HayliePomroy.com/detox and download my free Detox Decoded Masterclass. Let's give you a fighting chance. I know what it feels like to lose hope, whether you're dealing with fatigue, mast cell activation, an autoimmune disorder, long COVID, viral reactivation, anxiety or depression, or inflammation. All of it can feel overwhelming. I will teach you nutrition and natural therapies to help your body eliminate toxins. I cannot wait to see you there. Again, that's HayliePomroy.com/detox.
Since I have you here, I'm going to ask you a parenting question for myself
Yeah.
because I love what you just said. So yesterday, it was actually Mother's Day, and we were watching movies and chillaxing and chilling out. And I was telling my daughter, she's 22, so she's an older in the child space, right? But I just said, I'm just not feeling great. I feel like a little tired. I feel exhausted, a little achy. And she said, Mom, have you taken your vitamins today? I traveled. And I said, it's so funny. And I call her Sissy. I said, so funny. But I actually left my case and I haven't dished them out today. And I didn't take them last night. And she walked over and she set him next to me, right? And with a bottle of water. And I was like, oh my gosh, taking my handfuls of vitamins. And I don't miss my vitamins, but it was just the weirdest week, really, for me. And I thought, I was super stoked because, she acknowledged that I felt bad, or that I wasn't feeling great. And then she asked if there was something that I hadn't been taking care or caring for myself. And then she provided me.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that I was going to talk to you today, I had this question I was like, how do you teach kids responsibility without parentifying them? I felt parentified a little. It was lovely. I was Mother's Day, so I took it all in. I know. I was like, but the care, they're taking care of me, and it was Mother's Day, so I completely received it.
Yeah.
But how do you help a kid learn responsibility, like for their health, for their food choices, without parentifying them?
Yeah. So first things first, I think we tend to look at some of these ideas that are bandied about in the gentle parenting space, peaceful parenting, conscious parenting, whatever we want to call it, as black and white. And they are not. There's nuance, there's gradients, there's consistency. So parentification through my lens becomes harmful when a child from an early age and consistently over time was asked to play the role of the parent, to essentially meet the adult's emotional needs or physical needs. That's parentification. What I hear in that story is a 22-year-old young woman who has empathy, intellect, who didn't judge you about it. It was just like, hey, Mom, let me help. I mean,
Right.
to me, that sounds like you've done a great job raising your daughter. Children love to feel useful. They
Yes.
love to like this is where it gets a little wobbly. If we don't understand that so much of this lives in nuance, because, it's asking a child to unload the dishwasher, parentification. No, of course not. It's helping them contribute to the needs of a household. And those practices, especially when start young, but really at any time, develop a very healthy sense of competence, taking responsibility, being a part of the collective family ethos. Our job as parents is to raise adults,
Right.
which means that over time we need to give them more and more adult-like responsibilities and not coddle them or not be so afraid that, oh my gosh, I'm asking my child to do something for me. That's bad parenting. Like it's just silly.
No, but I love
Place.
that. I think the fact that, obviously I've raised my kids, they're raised, right? But the fact that
Yeah.
I would lay on the couch and go, was that an okay parenting move, shows, in my opinion, how ingrained
Yeah.
it is that you're gonna screw it all up. I mean, I just, you the first time you get your hands on those little ones, you just go, oh my gosh, don't screw it up, and that the support matters. I'm so fortunate. I have an amazing group of women friends. Everything from, how to sleep, lay on your side while you're nursing. Like there were people that could kind of filter in things that helped me, or, yeah, you had a really shitty parent move, Haylie. Would also kind of call me out on that and help me acknowledge that. So I love what you said with children love to feel useful. What about having kids helping with preparing healthy things like cooking? Okay, yeah. So I'd love to hear experiences that you've had with your clients. We cook as a family.
Yeah.
We also have the kids pick. We
There's
would do, yeah, we would do the queen for a day, king for a day, whatever they wanted, we would make them type thing. So we teach them how to be in service to someone else, but then also the responsibility of deciding dinner one day a week. And it was early in our family.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are so many positive outcomes that come from time together in our homes. And one of the ways that has to happen every day, pretty much in our homes, is food preparation. We're living in complicated times where kids are, we can get into talking about screens if you'd like, but we are up against a ginormous challenge as parents, which is how do we create connection in a world that is really tantalizingly disconnected, right? Where people are looking at a device 80% more than they're looking at another human being. And so this is where we get to step into leadership as parents and become the antidote to this thing, which we are now, the data is unequivocal. Ever since smartphones came online, children's mental health outcomes have decreased significantly, suicidal ideation up. I mean, not to get hysterical about it, but this is a real problem. And the only people who have any hope of providing at least some counterbalance to that, I think, are parents. So I say that as a preamble to saying, having a family culture where everyone's in the kitchen when it's dinner time and the phones are down and the music is on and we're cooking, and then someone's going to set the table and we're going to sit down at a kitchen table or a dining room table with no devices, gives us an opportunity to fuel not only our children's tummies, but also their sense of identity and belonging,
Right.
creating family rituals. That creates a sense of self. And children who, especially getting into the preteen and teenage years, who have that strong sense of, I know who I am. I
Right.
know where I came from. I know what's important to my people, are far better equipped to handle, who liked my Snapchat today.
What does a parent do, though, that wasn't raised that way, right? That didn't have family traditions? Or how do they start to, establish those? There's a lot of, traditional parenting, women's wisdom books that were really helpful to me, traditions in Native American and, Irish folklore, just different things that I tried to bring in. I was also fortunate that I was able to expose my kids to things like Waldorf and Montessori and different education philosophies.
Yeah.
So it was a real hunting down of some of those tools. But what about a parent that doesn't have those resources, right? Because that's the reality for most
Yeah.
parents and a lot of young parents too.
It doesn't have to be big. And what I would say is, first of all, this is why working with a parent coach is so great, because that coach is going to help you identify, okay, this is a gap, right? Like this is a need that we have in this family for more cohesiveness and connection. How can I create accountability for you, parent, to follow through on that? And then what I will say is children love their ideas way more than they love ours.
Oh, I like that.
I mean, I used to, when the kids were little, we did forced family fun Fridays where we'd go for a hike or, like it was like, we're having forced family fun and you can roll your eyes at me the whole way there. And that's what we're doing today. As they got older, just like you said with the cooking, each of them would get to play on a Friday, right? Like what's on your family fun day this Friday? Ooh, I want to go hiking. I hate hiking. It's your brother's happy day. Like,
Right.
Going. But I would invite the kids into the conversation. Hey guys, I'm feeling like we're not like having like that super fun time together like we used to because we've just gotten busy. What ideas do you guys have that we could do once a week or every night at the dinner table? Like that's just for our family. And listen to what they have to say, because then you have buy-in, right? For you who are, leaders, managers, CEOs, right? People are far more likely to follow through when it's their idea, and it's no different with kids.
I like that. And I like empowering the kids. We have a whole series on empowering the patient, right? It's like how to advocate for yourself. And it starts at a very, very early age. Which one is it? We have 2 cookbooks that have tons of pictures in them. Yeah. And one of the things that I always say in our nutrition programs is it's something that you would be so proud to feed your child. It's something that you would be so proud to bring to a family potluck. And we always encourage people like go through the pages of the book and see what looks good to the kid, see what looks good and make that it's teaching them, right? Like the healthy food advocacy and all of that stuff. I'm going to jump to mom or dad or parent, right? The person that's parenting. How could we talk in the nutrition space? I want my humans and my dogs and my horses and our cattle eating within 30 minutes of waking, right? Because everything you do is nutrient dependent. Every thought you have, every hormone you secrete, whether it's the feel joy, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed butterflies or stress, anxiety, depression, they're all nutrient dependent. So we try to infuse the body with nutrients upon rising. That's always my trick, right? And like, I'm a big don't do coffee, don't fast before going fast. All these little things about how you're going to rob yourself before you become the person that you want to project for the day. Give me some tips on a daily, like what can a parent do first thing in the morning that can help them feel more whole so that they can do a better job during the day?
Yeah, I mean, for most parents, that time before wake up, it's like the precious quiet. And I think that while it does take a certain amount of personal discipline and commitment, having a morning routine really is, to my mind, something that, when I'm not doing it, everybody knows. Let's just put it that way, because my temper is shorter. I don't feel grounded. So, that might look like getting up 30 minutes earlier. So for me, I follow, what's the book? Oh, Morning Miracle by Hal Elrod. I actually just got to meet him this week. It was super cool. But he has this very simple morning routine that I picked up probably 6-7 years ago. And I still do it to this day. I try to get outside, get some fresh air, get my feet on grass. I do live in New England, so sometimes that's a little painful. For me,
so get outside, get some fresh air, feet on the grass.
Fresh air. It's like, I'm alive. There's sun, I hope, maybe. Feet on the grass. I just do a short meditation. And again, that's just a way for me to kind of anchor myself into my day. Like, I am a human inside of a body, and I'm going to listen to it today. I journal. I read for a minimum of 30 pages, something that is going to inspire me. I have a big community of people that I'm responsible for. And so I do feel that kind of, it's the same with parenting, right? Like we are leaders. Parents by definition are leaders. A little bit of reading, and then I eat my morning food with coffee. I will admit, my 1 cup of the day, though, Haylie, and it's
I hope it's organic.
yes, and black. It's black and
put a scoop of dandelion root in it to support those poor adrenals that I'm crying for right now. But I'm so happy that you're eating with it.
Yes.
Yes. Check. You're doing a good job, Mama. You're doing a good job. I love it.
Yeah. And then I think there's one last piece, which is really important, is to review your day before it starts. Because parenting is so, like, especially if you're working, you have appointments. Kids got a dentist appointment at 2:00. It's not fun to be reacting to dings on your phone with your calendar. So if you kind of sit down for 5 minutes, okay, this is what my day looks like. Yes, I've got Pilates at 4:00. I'm committed. I'm going, which means I need to be done with work at 3:30. And this way you just kind of then are more prepared and able to meet the inevitable, course corrections that life will inevitably throw our way.
Right. Absolutely. I love those, and I wrote those all down. And in our blog post with this, I will lay them out. And I like a checklist, right? Sometimes if you just have that populate on your phone or put it in your calendar, right? Because the one thing that I remember with when the kids were little, it was always so hard for me to stay organized. I mean, just really, really hard. It was a single parent for the majority, and just really difficult. Tell me about your book, The Peaceful Parenting. When did you write that book? When did it come out?
It came, oh my goodness, now I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. It's been out for about 1.5 years. I want to say October 2023. I wrote it, there is definitely a method to our madness at the Giant Institute for Parenting. There are so many, I love parenting Instagram. I love parenting TikTok, but there's a simplification of the message, which I think has been a little problematic, because peaceful parenting is not so simple as, use a quiet inside voice or, stop using timeouts, right? Becoming a peaceful parent has far more to do with who you are than what you do. And so I wanted to write a book that told the truth. Like, I think parenting peacefully is far harder than parenting traditionally, right? Like, it was much easier to scream at my children until they cleaned their room or, did their homework than to get curious about their needs and to work with them in a cooperative way to set them up for success, to think that like if I'm having a reaction to something, it's my daughter's fault and she should just, right? Like it takes a lot of humility and vulnerability and commitment to look at our behavior and look at how we are out of integrity or alignment with our children. That is brave work. And so the book, what I love about it is I worked with 7 of our parent coaches from different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, to hear their stories and to create a book that hopefully illuminates what it means to be a peaceful parenting here at Jive.
I always feel like podcasting in general is a selfish self-expression, in my opinion, because I get excited to ask questions about parenting or parenting on behalf of our community. So I pull my community, right? So we have a question for you.
Okay.
One of the tough, there's many tough times to parent, or at least that's my belief system. Maybe it was easy for everybody else, or to parent as best as you darn can. One of the times it's really hard is kind of combating all of this unhealthy crap that's out there. So like the birthday parties and Halloween at school. And when my kids were in school, we had a teacher that sent this big long list, and it said, we only allow healthy snacks. So you can only bring diet, 7-Up, diet, or whatever it was, diet soda, Skinny Cow popsicles, or whatever, those Skinny Cow ice cream pops. She had this list, and like the fat-free Lay's potato chips, like it was, and I mean, I was like,
so basically we can bring in chemicals to feed our.
I know. I know. So, but as a parent, so I also had really severe food allergies as a kid. So like I never had, sugar cereal. It was funny because we were just talking the other day. I've never tried Lucky Charms or Cocoa Puffs in my life. You know what I mean? I don't know. My gut microbiome would survive it. I just was born that way. I had eczema and problems, but it's hard as a parent to be that parent that says, I spoke with that teacher and I brought her a bunch of articles and a bunch of stuff. And I just said, like, on the contrary, I don't want you feeding my kid that. So, but I also didn't want to come across as, this nutritionist or this expert or just that mom. I've got a lot of my girlfriends are teachers and they're like, oh, Haylie, don't be that mom. So how can you navigate that? How can my community navigate those times where there's so much detriment, and then you get the kid back and they're wired and cranky and maybe have rashes, or like my daughter would get big raspberry rashes and my son would be sick to his stomach. And how can we parent through that? Help us, coach us.
This is obviously dependent on different factors, right? Are we talking about a food allergy, right, where there's going to be drastic physical repercussions to a child having food they shouldn't have? Are we talking about a, ideal kind of like in our, right? Like we love the words in our family, right? Like in our family, we
just,
healthy food.
Right.
So here's the thing is I'm going to go back to the idea of nuance and leadership. So number one, you're the leader of your family. Only you get to decide what food is or is not appropriate for your children. And the level to which you are, firm in that boundary is really a very personal choice. That being said, I have a couple of words of caution, and they're deeply personal. So I grew up a dancer. I had I used to call myself a failed anorexic. I wasn't good. I wasn't willful enough to be as thin as I want. And I still have a very, I have my relationship with food. I'm very committed and passionate about nutrition and raised my children in that culture, as my daughter approached puberty, and started to put on some body fat, it was like I thought she was going to die. It was like my whole fight or flight system was triggered and I became more and more controlling. And, we worked with therapists, like it was a road we went down together.
Yeah.
It took probably a couple of years all told for us to like really work through it and me to get over my stuff and her, it was very complicated and I don't need to get into the details. And one of the things that the eating disorder therapist said to me was, were you highly restrictive around treats when she was young? And I said, yes. Yes, I was. And so what we have to become aware of is if we're highly restrictive, not because there's a peanut allergy or celiac disease, but because we have this hyperfixation on everything being healthy, good food, it creates, as children start to individuate, right, and want more autonomy and they're in other people's house, almost a hyperfixation on the things that they weren't allowed to have. And so I think now I might have been more flexible and created conversation around it, right? Like when my son goes to a birthday party and eats ice cream, he gets a stomach ache every time. And so we'll have conversations like, was it worth it? How did you feel? Would you do it again? Because at the end of the day, they're going to choose what to put in their bodies.
Right.
And so our best hope is education, curiosity, and being careful to not make food a scary thing or a restrictive thing.
Right.
Can then pendulum into, eating disorders or overeating because we had stuff with food.
It's interesting that you say that story. So my daughter was in high school rodeo and we were all walking up to the arena and there was a mom and her 17-year-old daughter. Both of them had their cell phones in their jean pockets. And I heard this ding, diddling, this chiming going off. And they both whipped out their phones and they, were hitting their phones. And I said, what's going on? And they said, oh, we both just got tokens. And they got tokens for fasting, for not eating. And they were, oh no, oh no, oh no. Talk about, yes. And I'm looking at this beautiful, young 17-year-old and this gorgeous young 44-year-old mom. And I'm going, our community is praising these women, for not eating. It's just crazy. And one of the things that I did with my kids was I would say, you've got to fuel your body. You've got to fuel bone growth and hair growth. And think about how careful we are with what we feed our dog and how careful we are with what we feed the horses. And we make sure they get their vitamins. We always check that they have fresh water. And I'm going to make sure that we take care of all the, four-legged and two-legged, people and animals around us, just with all this love and everything. And I would do a lot of exchange. Like if you're going to do, and curiosity, like you said, like, gosh, that hurt your tummy. What could we eat instead? What could we do instead? But also exchange. Like, don't come up and ask me if you can have a slice of pizza until you tell me what you've done good for yourself, right? Tell me, like really brag. And so they were little and they would say, so far I've had a carrot and a cucumber and some raspberries and, and so is it okay if I eat a popsicle? I said, wow, what a great body is nourished to be able to handle that, I don't know. It's
balance, right? I mean, it's how I want my relationship with food to be. I want to eat really healthy food most of the time. And sometimes I want to get the hot fudge sundae.
Right. As long as it's real food. I mean, that's right. My whole thing. My whole thing is like, look, if you're going to take a swig of paint, right? We would never, as a parent or as a teacher or as a school system, right? If we took the chemicals out of the food and put it in a jar, would we ever serve it in the lunch line? But because it's sprinkled within our food, we're allowed to serve it. So that's one thing where I just say, go, there is no bad food. Yeah. It's just when food is called food when it's not food.
Yeah. I mean, have them read, my kids used to read labels.
Yeah.
This is again, like stepping into right relationship with parenting doesn't mean being their drill sergeant. It doesn't mean being their disciplinarian or the person who's controlling every decision that they make. It does mean that we are their educator.
I love that.
And their guide. And so when you're passionate about whole food, teach it. Why? What should, let's read these labels. Oh, look, that ingredient has 9,000 letters. Let's look that up on the internet together. What that is. Now we're empowering children versus the old way of like, because I said so.
Right.
You can't eat this because I said so. Well, guess what they're going to do as soon as they're out of eyesight of you?
Well, the other thing too is if anything, with all of this shift in technology, we can all acknowledge the capacity for our children to learn different things, right? Outside of memorizing for a standardized test. And so empowering them, again, I feel like everything in every foundation, it's all nutrient dependent. So I'm always, driving that education home because it's so empowering when they have their periods, when they have pregnancy, when they have bone density issues later in life, when they start to have low testosterone as a man. I get the clients that come in that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old that have no knowledge of autonomy over their body and how and their health and empowering their health. Kiva, I just want to make sure that my community knows how to get a hold of you. What's the best way and where would they go to find out more about you?
Well, the book, The Peaceful Parenting Revolution, is available on Amazon. You can find it there. There is tons of information on our website, JaiInstituteForParenting.com. And if you're looking for just, yummy, compassionate tips that don't boil parenting down into 3 easy steps, our Instagram channel, Jai Institute, is awesome.
That's great. I want to thank you so much for being on. It was a really cool topic to talk about to our community because, I think when you do things with intention, it really helps escalate or magnify your capacity for success in that. And we see that. I love that you brought that athlete analogy. We see that in sports. We see that in business. And in mental health, we're starting to see that, I'm so glad the conversations are happening, and definitely in supporting the parents. So thank you so much for being on. Please say you'll do this again. I know after this podcast, our community is like, wait, ask this, ask this, ask this. So I love having you. Please say you'll come back.
100%. I would love to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I do have moments where I think to myself, if I could do it again, I would probably parent differently if I had a coach.
Mhm.
And I feel fortunate that I had the resources that I had of people to give me ideas and support, and still definitely fell short with parenting my own kids. So I wish I had you at the time. I'm glad I have you now, and I'm glad our community has you. So look out for our questions, and we will see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.